Hi everyone. So today we are reacting to a very interesting video, the best of Carl Sagan on religion. For those of you who don't know who Carl Sagan is, he is a very famous astrophysicist, astronomer, cosmologist, and best-selling author of the well-known Cosmos. So let's get right into it.
Yet there are still those in science who say the exquisite nature of the universe, the exquisite laws of the universe, are evidence of a designer, of a creator. Mm-hmm. Does that view make sense to you?
It's very tempting. I mean, we want to be thought of as children being cared for by an omnipotent, omniscient, and benevolent creator. I mean, think of all the uncertainties and turmoil and terrors of our life, which would be made less terrifying.
You know, for some people, this point, when you try to explain, why there is a creator or why there should be a creator, some of the doubts that arise, in the minds of people are, how can you say there's a creator when there's so many, turmoils and tragedies in the world? How do you explain famine and suicide and murder and rape? How can there be a God and all these things are allowed to happen, Those arguments are there. Let's see what more he says.
If this were true. But here, if anywhere, is a case where we must not believe because we want it to be true. Now, if you take a look at Darwin, you see a case where it was so tempting to say, I find a watch. It requires a watchmaker. Watches do not spontaneously self-assemble. And now I find an acorn or a squid or a bacterium. It is much more intricately and exquisitely put together than a watch. Here too there must have been a creator. It's very natural. But what Darwin pointed out is that there's a perfectly reasonable process which is inevitable, which will create enormous, exquisite order out of chaos given enough time. If we thought the universe was only 6,000 years old, there is not enough time and evolution is nonsense. But if, as in fact is now definitively true, the solar system and the Earth are 4.5 billion years old, then there's plenty of time for evolution, and our sense that order means creator is wrong. Finally, you can say, look, you can go back as far as you want, but somehow the stuff of the universe had to come from somewhere, and isn't that what God did? But that's only true if the universe was created.
This is a really interesting point because for those who have a background in Vedic philosophy, actually, we look at the time cycle as being that of going through 4 phases, right? The 4 yugas. And there's also the principle of the universe being anadi. Anadi means without a beginning. So it comes into manifestation, then goes out of manifestation, and then back into manifestation. So that cycle has no beginning. So whenever you talk about the origin of creation, you're looking at a starting point for when did the universe begin? When did the first creation happen? That only is up for argument when you accept a starting point. If you have cyclical time and cyclical creation, then that creation itself as a topic of contention and debate doesn't come into the picture. Because why? It's beginningless. It's a cycle. It's like, for example, let's take an example of chicken and egg. You must have heard of it before, right? Which came first, the egg or the chicken? So the chicken comes from the egg came from the chicken came from the egg. So which one came first? It's a cycle, right? You can't say which one came first. It's beginningless. You don't know where it started from. So in that way also, there is some sort of harmony here from the Vedic standpoint with what he's saying. Let's continue.
If the universe was always here, if the universe was infinitely old, then there's nothing for a creator to do.
Anadi.
Most of us
beginningless.
Would be surprised to hear that the universe is going to end one day. We expect the universe to go on forever into the future. Why do we have the idea that it doesn't go on forever into the past? I'm not saying I know the answer to this. This is one of the deepest questions. We do not know the answer. We simply have to keep an open mind, all of us.
This is also a very important point. I think, all of us, whether we belong to any religion, any philosophical ideology, that whenever we have any belief system, that we also should always keep an open mind. Because you never know when we can get new data, new evidence, new understanding. Recently, I was reflecting on something, and you can tell me in the comment section whether you think it makes sense or not. A belief may be a truth, but truth can never be a belief. Meaning what? There are so many beliefs, and one of those beliefs may turn out to be true. But the moment you know it's true, and you know it's the truth, then it no longer remains a belief to you. It's the truth. Let me know in the comments if you agree or not.
Philosophers, scientists, religious people, no one, in fact, knows.
You make the argument.
If the general picture, however, of a Big Bang followed by an expanding universe is correct, what happened before that? Was the universe devoid of all matter and then the matter suddenly, somehow created? How did that happen?
If you've seen our video on God, creation and miracles, so you know that we've discussed this point in detail. You can check out that video.
In many cultures, the customary answer is that a god or gods created the universe out of nothing. But if we wish to pursue this question courageously, we must, of course, ask the next question. Where did God come from? If we decide that this is an unanswerable question, why not save a step and conclude that the origin of the universe is an unanswerable question? Or, if we say that God always existed, why not save a step and conclude that the universe always existed?
Both these ideas are there in our scriptures and in different philosophies, different what we call darshanas, different viewpoints. There's a viewpoint in Indian philosophy called as the anirvachaniya vada, or the theory of inexplicability, which talks about if you were to explain or you were to give a reason for why the world is what it is, a reason they give is called inexplicability, meaning it can't be explained. It's anirvachaniya. It can't be described. It can't be explained. Something similar to ponder upon, yeah?
There's no need for a creation. It was always here. These are not easy questions. Cosmology brings us face to face with the deepest mysteries, with questions that were once treated only in religion and myth.
Let's look a little more deeply into that. What is faith? It is belief in the absence of evidence. Now, I don't propose to tell anybody what to believe, but for me, believing when there's no compelling evidence is a mistake. The idea is to withhold belief until there is compelling evidence.
Now, you guys have to tell me in the comment section, do you agree? Do you think you should withhold your beliefs until you find evidence, until there is evidence presented? So I've heard many definitions of the word faith in my life through my studies. One such definition is what? That faith is the belief in something until you come to know it. Now, does that mean I accept my belief as the truth, the only truth, and that there is no other truth? So the idea here that what I understand from what Carl Sagan is saying here is that you are free to have your beliefs, but until there is not sufficient evidence to support that, your mind should be open to other ideas. Not that you can't have your belief systems.
And if the universe does not comply with our predispositions, okay, then we have the wrenching obligation to accommodate to the way the universe really is.
So you step forward to say, I deny all religion because I can't see it proved scientifically?
No. You see,
the value of religious experience and the value of reaching for higher experiences.
Let me say, religion deals with history, with poetry, with great literature, with ethics, with morals, including the morality of treating compassionately the least fortunate among us. All of these are things that I endorse wholeheartedly. Where religion gets into trouble is in those cases that it pretends to know something about science.
This is also a really funny point. Actually, when I was studying in ashrams a couple of years ago, a point was noted to me based on a question that I had that, what happens when science and the Vedic wisdom, when they intersect? And I was told very beautifully a verse that explains the field of knowledge where Vedas are applied, where it means what is their research field, what do they talk about? And there's a very beautiful verse on this. Pratyakshena numitya va yastu payo na vidyate evam vidanti vedena tasmad vedasya vedata. So it talks about what aspects of this universe, what aspects of our own personality and our own selves does Vedas have the authority to speak on? And there that verse says that if something can be directly perceived through our sense organs, Vedas are not the authority. If something can be inferred through inference, something can be postulated, something can be known through cause and effect, then for that you don't need Vedas. But for that which is beyond sense perception, beyond inference, in that area, in that field of research, Vedas say, we deal with that topic. So I think with that, explanation, I think that you can, separate or demarcate where science is applicable, where its field of research is, and where philosophy, where our religious ideology is, where they operate. Let me know in the comment section if you agree or not.
The science in the Bible, for example, was acquired by the Jews from the Babylonians during the Babylonian captivity of 600 BC. That was the best science on the planet then. But we've learned something since then. Roman Catholicism, Reformed Judaism, most of the mainstream Protestant denominations have no difficulty with the idea that humans have evolved from other creatures, that the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, with the Big Bang. They don't have any trouble with that. The trouble comes with people who are biblical literalists, who believe that the Bible is dictated by the creator of the universe to an unerring stenographer.
And so therefore they...
And has no metaphor or allegory.
And from there they make their political and economic choices, and social choices.
And scientific.
And scientific choices. And scientific. And that's part of your problem with that idea.
Exactly.
It is that because for the wrong reasons we make the wrong choices about science.
This also, something worth noting. And I know I keep saying, this is also noteworthy, this is also noteworthy. But interesting ideas, that pop into my mind when I watch such videos. This idea that Carl Sagan is expressing here, and which the interviewer is asking, questions on. The idea that, words, right? All our scriptures are words. And they are open to interpretation. There are a lot of, statements that we make even in our day-to-day lives, which its literal meaning is not to be taken. For example, in America or around the world, there was a common phrase for youth when they used to speak with their own, peers, and they say words like, hey dog, what's up? So when you call your friend, hey dog, are you actually telling your friend that you are a dog? You are a kutta? No, you're not doing that, right? It's a phrase, hey dog. Doesn't mean literally your friend is a dog. So words have literal meaning. Words also have implied meaning, contextual meaning. So with scriptures also, the lens through which we look at, Sanskrit verses in our, Vedas, in our Upanishads, in our Smritis, our Puranas, our Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, whatever scripture you are looking at, the lens through which we look at has to be tuned with the context. That is also very important. Otherwise, literal meaning alone can lead to a lot of confusion, especially when it comes to scientific information and scientific fields of research.
That's right. So who is more humble? The scientist who looks at the universe with an open mind and accepts whatever the universe has to teach us, or somebody who says everything in this book must be considered the literal truth, and never mind the fallibility of all the human beings involved in the writing of this book?
Humility. That's something I think, when you belong to any tradition or you belong to any value system, any religion, adopting any philosophical ideology, that is one virtue that is, string through all traditions. And sometimes, when we get involved in any particular lifestyle choice, whether it be whether I call myself a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew or a Sikh, whatever it may be, that should not make me arrogant about my understanding of whatever I choose to accept or believe as truth. Humility should be there. And in many ways, science expresses that humility through their development. Means they are ready to accept, I don't know the final answer. I don't know what is the end goal of this. I don't know where it's going to end up. But I'm going to continuously ask questions, continue to pursue an answer to those questions. And I think, especially for us here at Just Curious, that is our objective. We try to present, both perspectives. There's a religious and philosophical perspective based on some belief system. But there's also the other side of the thought process. Questioning, being skeptical, being intuitive, and being ready to open your mind to question the things which you have accepted as truth. We are not saying to reject any ideas, but one's mind must be malleable enough to think from both sides. And that's the beauty of science, and it's also the beauty of us as human beings, when we can think from both sides.
I think the essence of the scientific method is the willingness to admit you're wrong, the willingness to abandon ideas that don't work, and the essence of religion is not to change anything. The supposed truths are handed down by some revered figure, and then no one is supposed to make any progress beyond that, because all the truth is thought to be in hand.
I'm really talking about setting an agenda for the future.
My sense is that the scientific way of thinking, questioning, some delicate mix of creative encouragement of new ideas and the most rigorous and skeptical scrutiny of new and old ideas, I think that is the path to the future, not just for science, but for all human institutions. We have to be willing to challenge because we are in desperate need of change.
Some sort of terrible insignificance of this planet we inhabit. What do you see when you look at the pale blue dot?
Well, it is true that some people are disappointed that the Earth has such a comparatively insignificant role in the universe. But my view is, first of all, it's not our job to impose our wishes or fears on the universe. Our job is to understand what the universe is really like.
There is something very humbling about that picture we've just seen, though, isn't there? I mean, does it strike you that way?
Certainly. I mean, here we are like mites on a plum. And the plum is this little planet, and it goes around an insignificant local star, the sun. And that star is on the obscure outskirts of an ordinary galaxy, the Milky Way, which contains 400 billion other stars. And this galaxy is just one of something like 100 billion other galaxies that make up the universe. And it is now beginning to look, this universe is one of an enormous number, maybe even an infinite number, of other closed-off universes. So the idea that we are central, that we are the reason there is a universe, is pathetic.
This point also, when you think about what our place is in this universe, how important are really our problems. When you see the planet Earth in comparison to other planets in our solar system, or our solar system in comparison with other galaxies, we are just such a small, tiny little dot in this mega universe, multiverse. And yet we think we are the crest jewel of creation. It's a point when you reflect upon, you really are put in your place to know where you stand in this grand cosmos.
We have to simply come to grips with the real universe that we really live in. And if some of our myth and some of our religion is inconsistent with it, it's time to change the myth and the religion.
You call them the great demotions, all of these thoughts which we have so cherished. Well, guess what? The universe doesn't revolve around the Earth, and guess what? The Earth isn't the only world out there. Are we still clinging to any conceits, such as those which led to the great demotions over the past few centuries?
Well, you would think we should be over it, but we still are battling, at least in the United States, the conceit that humans are separate from the rest of nature, that an unbridgeable gap separates humans from the other plants and animals, that we are the particular beneficiaries of the concern of the creator of the universe more than any of the 10 million other species of plants and animals on the earth, when in fact all of our vaunted uniqueness turns out to be shared with other animals, especially with chimpanzees, our closest relatives, with whom we share 99.6% of our hereditary material. Another area in which the demotion is being fought is the idea that there are no other planets beyond those in our own solar system. But in the last 15 years, the most marvelous set of findings has occurred, in which it now appears that planets are an ordinary, probably inevitable accompaniment of star formation.
So this video is shot many years back, okay? This is 20th century video. And at that time, of course, the technology had not developed like the James Webb, Space Telescope, etc. But even at that time, with whatever data they had, it was clearly recognized that, hey, our solar system is not just these few planets around the sun. It's a much bigger, much more grander universe than earlier expected, earlier thought to be. And especially when it comes to biblical teachings, where it is portrayed that the entire universe and all the planets are revolving around the earth. Scientists have, found evidence to disqualify such a theory. Let's just put it mildly in that manner. But the idea is what? If we find a clash between religion and science, between evidence and belief, the intelligent person has to decide for themselves on which ground will they stand. And that's up to each one of us.
And that almost every young star like the sun, in the early stages of formation, is surrounded by this flat disk of gas and dust out of which the planets were formed. And we now have the first bona fide real planetary system around a very unlikely object, a particular pulsar called 1257 plus 12. And the technology is just about to reach out and find whatever planetary systems there are nearby. And the third one is the idea that even if there are an enormous number of planets, only ours has life and intelligence. And there, the story is open. We send spacecraft to other planets, like Mars, to see if there are any simple forms of life. Excuse me. We use radio telescopes to see if messages are being sent to us by civilizations on planets of other stars. So far, although there have been some very curious, tantalizing findings in both of those approaches, we have found nothing definitive, unambiguous evidence for extraterrestrial life, and the debate is still open. In our ignorance, the geocentrists still find hope.
Is there life on other planets? Do you see the way he puts across his point of view? He says, in our ignorance. But the pursuit continues, recognizing that we don't have all the answers, but keeping the door open to find the answers by asking questions, by doing further research, by looking for evidence. This is something each human being can add to their personality. What is that? Critical thinking, logical reasoning. It doesn't mean that you will disrespect your religion or your personal belief systems. It just means that you are able to utilize this beautiful gift of an evolved intellect. I hope you guys enjoy this reaction to the best of Carl Sagan on religion. If you want us to react to more videos like this, do let us know in the comment section below. You can also let us know if there's any video that you would like us to react to, and we'll get right into it. We'll look at it, and we'll hopefully be able to record that video for you guys. If you like this video, please do subscribe to our channel to see more content like this on Just Curious. Thank you for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.